It needs to be impartial about a conflict, doesn't it? And it's hard.
Does it have to be? It wasn't impartial about Ukraine and Russia.
Rafi Berg, who's a senior BBC editor, he was exposed, and get this, as a CIA and a Mossad collaborator.
I am a Riva and I was taught how to pray Salah.
That means every single time I pray,
the person who told me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support someone like me in learning Salah,
Then sponsor 10 people for just £100.
Remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, said,
Charity does not decrease wealth. Click the button and donate now.
Assalamu alaikum guys, and welcome to another episode of Smile to Jannah. Gary Lineker is a football commentator, and we are in such times that football commentators are speaking more sense than our news channels. I mean, after all, on YouTube, whenever you look at any of these news channels, you'll see under it partly or wholly funded by Qatar, partly or wholly funded by Saudi, etc. But when it comes to the BBC, they're being shown as impartial. But what I wanted to do was react to this interview with Gary Lineker. Like I said, he's a football commentator and used to play for England as well. And there's going to be a lot of starting and stopping just so it doesn't get flagged as previous BBC clips have been. And then we're going to see why this interviewer is so intent on defending Israel.
You could be partial.
I know where I stand on this. I'm sorry, it's more important than what the BBC, what's going on there is, the mass murder of thousands of children is probably something that we should have a little opinion on.
But the BBC as a whole needs to be impartial about it.
Why?
Did you see the guy's face? Huh? Because we're supposed
It needs to be factual.
It needs to be impartial about a conflict, doesn't it? And it's hard.
Does it have to be? It wasn't impartial about Ukraine and Russia.
This guy is coming with bars. So it's only 28 seconds into the clip, mate. I hope he builds on this, but I don't know, they probably would have edited this out because the comparison is so important. Yeah, even Piers Morgan couldn't handle Mehdi Hassan when he brought up this hypocrisy.
You might say that
Why does it have to be impartial about... I understand if it's partial about our government and things in this country and everything like that, but something that's going on that far away, why does it...
Because the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza...
Probably you should have said something as clear-cut as that. Something with such a disparate amount of casualties. Yeah, because on the one hand, you look at Israelis, a couple of thousand. On the other hand, you look at Palestinians, 50,000. It's clear. You look at the Palestinians, very weak, don't have the firepower. Israel does.
And by the way, I'm not here as an advocate of the Israeli government. But
whatever, we're gonna prove that these guys actually are.
The Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza is a response to the slaughter and capture of innocent Israelis on October the 7th. And
which was awful, which was truly awful.
And that full context needs to be there when discussing what's going on.
But that's not the full context, is it? Because the full context starts way before October the 7th, doesn't it?
It sounds like you think the BBC is in a complete mess on impartiality.
Yes.
I don't think the BBC is in a mess. I think the BBC it's very difficult for the BBC. I think the BBC generally does a really good job of it, but it's not always easy.
Yeah, he's employed by the BBC, he's got to say that, fair dues, but yeah, it is an absolute mess, as I'm going to prove.
I understand why it's so difficult for the BBC, and it really is, and
Nah, that's where we differ, Gary, mate, yeah?
I feel for the people at the top, because the amount of lobbying that will be going on, and people with...
Alright guys, pay attention, yeah? I'm going to give you 5 solid evidences that this mug didn't tell you. Number 1, you had an analysis that was done by Jannah and Dana Najjar. They looked at 600 articles and 4,000 live feed posts between October the 7th, 2023 and December the 2nd, 2023. So 2 months. They concluded whenever Israeli deaths were mentioned, they were mentioned by name. On the other hand, when Palestinian deaths were mentioned, they were just said and mentioned in a group, almost dehumanizing them. Number 2, Palestinian deaths, whenever reported, were justified. Yeah, typical words that were used were words to the variation of retaliating, that Israel was just responding, they were just reacting. Number 2, leaked emails of staff speaking to their heads, talking about unchecked lies being allowed during their interviews. I'll give you an example. Terrorists reached into a lady taking out her baby while the umbilical cord was still attached. They were just allowed to say this nonsense unchecked. And this happened on a number of occasions. And the BBC Director General was Tim Davie. And number 3, in November 2023, 8 BBC journalists wrote a 2,300 word letter complaining to Al Jazeera about the BBC bias. Number 4, this is my favorite one, yeah? Rafi Berg, who's a senior BBC editor. In fact, he's the lead in BBC's Middle East desk. Yeah, he was exposed, and get this, as a CIA and a Mossad collaborator. And as a result, 13 employees said that there was a culture of, and I quote, extreme fear to post anti-Israeli content, and that he has, quote, wild amounts of power at the BBC. And lastly, number 5, Declassified UK revealed that the BBC were amongst those who had a secret meeting with the former chief of staff for Israel's military called Avi Kochavi. Secret meetings with armies of another country, and this is supposed to be a channel which is unbiased? What a load of tosh. If now somebody calls BBC unbiased, slap him in the face intellectually. You know what I mean? I have to put that one in there because someone might actually do it and reference this clip. Props to Gary Lineker for obviously, being in the BBC, being in the limelight, and still being on the right side of history, mate. Because people like this, obviously they get a lot of pressure put on them. It's not nice. It's a headache because these Israelis are well connected. But respect to him. Make sure you keep watching Smile to Jannah. And I've got a news channel called s2jnews.com. That's the number 2. s2jnews.com. Make sure you download the app. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.